everybody to BYP Cape Town. My name is Dumisani Wambi. Um, I am the founder of Imbovane Solutions. We are driven on data and impact in Kailicha. I was luckily introduced to BYP earlier this year, and my job is honestly finding ways of getting all of us to interact about industry and how professionals are working around the world, especially as Black professionals. So for me, this was finding myself at BYP, and I hope it also is a very holistic space for you to also find yourself. I'm called to BYP because I could see the need for connecting Black people. It's only a privilege for me to welcome all of you to this webinar. This is the second webinar from BYP Cape Town. We're a small group. There's big ones. We have London, we have Chicago, we have Dubai, great professionals who are Black who are saying we need to change the narrative of Black professionals. And I'm lucky today to really welcome a great person I've met only in one day. Just before I get into it, I would love for us to glance onto our screens. We've shared something beautiful for you from BYP, and everything is going to make sense what everything is that you're seeing here. And I do think and hope that you find yourself holistically in this space. Uh, we have Ayo on the other side of Africa in Nigeria who's gonna help me move the screen. So please do excuse me when I go Ayo, and she's gonna move the screens to the second slide, and we'll delve more into what BYP is. Ayo. About BYP. BYP means Black Youth Professional. I used to think it used Black Young Professionals, and you guys could see that I'm quite gray. So it's really not about being young. I think being young is a state of mind, but for most important, it starts by being Black. And we've never had a chance to do this. I remember me and you and I always were talking about relaxing. I'm quite nervous when it comes to this, but this is my love to introduce you to BYP. It was founded by the need again to see and connect Black professionals as we're doing now from around the world. We have people in arts, we have people in AI and tech in the space, we have people in impact and people work like myself. And this BYP is about having all those professional skills. I think for me, it speaks to one, being able to connect to other professionals, and two, to actually see opportunities that are in other countries as Black professionals. And I think it speaks to us as being able to see other cities as potential spaces for us to take our products and skills, and not only hold on to them where we are. I'm in Cape Town, and I would think there's professionals in Nigeria and spaces that I could work in Nigeria. And I think for me, BIP speaks to my personal ambitions to explore the world as a Black professional. And you could take BIP in your own way. And for me, doing this webinar is just what I think BIP stands for. That one is in Chicago, one is in Cape Town, and we're all connecting under this platform, and other features that BYP has. We'll delve into more in the next slide. And BYP has a platform called Javelin, where we do have we can connect as professionals. Say I am in the impact space, and I would love to explore in impact needs in Nigeria. I would create my profile on Javelin, and guess what? Maybe an executive in Nigeria would find me on Javelin. So one important thing about what we're trying to do is to get a lot of our professionals and whoever is here on that platform, so you can be visible to other executives all around the world. Most importantly, Black executives. And without further ado, I would love to just give you a really brief um, background of how this webinar came about. I was in one of Kylie Cha's best coffee cafes, Siki's Coffee, and I met this gentleman who was inside the cafe, and I think what gravitated towards me and having a conversation with this brother was the fact that he came from a Caribbean country, grew up in the US, and hey, he's a tech a professional. That for me hit. And I think that one of the few things I spoke with him was, "How are you in Kailicha?" and and what do you do? How can you? So it just sparked, and we said to one another that this is a building of a relationship, and this is a manifestation of that day where we engaged about how Black people could get into to the tech space, and what are the challenges that we would find in the tech space. Again, knowing that the resources and infrastructure is not it is not in our side. So I'll speak for Cape Town as a tech hub of Africa, and that yes, it is a tech hub for tech is a tech hub in Africa, yet you still find your political nuances getting into to hinder Black professionals coming in. So it was just a snap of a finger to say, hey, we have to have a space as Black people where we compete, and without the lens of previous privileged executive people in this case, who would in through their lens judge how we get into spaces. And I think for me, when I spoke to this gentleman, he spoke about producting a production where we see the needs of Black people represented well in the tech space. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to a beautiful gentleman who's all around Africa. We started in Cape Town, but I think he's gonna come back soon. And as a tech professional, as a person who's got insight into the AI space, we need to learn how to get into the AI space and challenge it where it needs to be challenged. When he's ready, he is going to take it away, and after that, we would have a Q&A. And yes, I think more importantly, we will connect further from today on. KJ, Karon Jahmahi Green, please take it away, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you so much, Dumi, for the great intro. I really, really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you're calling from, please drop your cities in the chat. Would love to see where everyone's coming in from. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Love to see the great work that you all are doing at BYP. So today we're gonna just have a conversation. We are going to talk. I'm gonna share my journey with you and hope to hear your journey as well through your questions. But I'll go ahead and share my screen now so that we can get started. Can you all see it?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So I am Karon Green, but I go by KJ. So please feel free to call me KJ. I am of Caribbean descent with African roots in West Africa in the Nigeria and Ghana area. And I now live and reside in New York City. So, which in my opinion is one of the greatest cities in the world, as people say, but it's a city for me that's provided a lot of opportunity and really allowed me to grow as an adult and to really explore and grow within the tech space. So I am a AI product manager. I've worked in product management for the past, I'd say 3 to 4 years. I founded my own startup back in 2021, and now I'm doing it again and building another startup. And over the past 5 years, I worked at Amazon, T-Mobile, and other big tech firms, which really gave me the strong foundation that I have today in tech. And I really specialize in the AI and cloud space because I'm just so interested in how AI and cloud interact with each other for innovation. It's a cool space. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. But I think we talk about all of these technologies all the time, AI, cybersecurity, cloud. But I think I want us to take a step back today and realize that despite of all these technologies within our world, I believe that at the core, that we are the fuels of those technologies and those innovations. We, our passions, our desires, our ideas, our creativity is really at the center of where this innovation happens. Because if there are not people, then there will be no innovation. So, as Dumi mentioned, I got to visit South Africa back in July. So I was there celebrating my 30th birthday. I was celebrating life, just celebrating just the greatness of being 30, being a 30-year-old. Give me 1 second. Let me fix the orientation of this. 1 second. Okay, cool. This is what I want to show. Awesome. Wait. Okay, cool. So my trip to Cape Town, like I said, it was when I just had turned 30. I came with a friend and we wanted to do all the tourist things. We did the safari, we did a food tour, we went to a winery, we went to Robben Island. I hiked Table Mountain, which was very, very difficult. But one of the things that I wanted to do was experience the local culture beyond just what's marketed. So we decided to take a trip out to Kaidalisha. We did some volunteer work out there with the Kaidalisha Bicycles group. We got a tour. We really got to interact with locals, and that's how I met Dumi at randomly at a coffee shop, and we connected over tech, being Black professionals, the disparities that we face as Black professionals, and like he said, this was a manifested moment of us coming together to have this talk today in November of 2024. So really, really, really excited to dive in. But just our format today will be, again, like I said, fueling innovation from within. And I'll really just talk through my story and how my life kind of unfolded within the tech space. Then I'll talk about driving passions and how we can contribute to tech. I'll just go through just some best practices if you want to start your own company, start your own startup, how that can look. And then finally, I'll just end with ways as Black professionals, how we can explore our role and really take height in this space, especially in the African tech sector. So let's jump right in. So early on, my personal story is really marked by me growing up in the Caribbean. So I grew up in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, very, very small island right next to Puerto Rico, 32 square miles, very, very small. I come from very humble beginnings. But being from the Caribbean, like African culture, it's vibrant, it's close-knit, we collaborate, we love each other. And a lot of those qualities is what I've taken into my future life. And I grew up in the early 2000s, and we all know the early 2000s was a time of tech boom. That's when the internet came up. That's when music streaming started to become live, the explosion of social media. And back then, I was really beginning to build a tech skill set without even knowing it. I was assembling computer hardware as a child, as like, at 5 years old. I was burning CDs because that was during the time where you could file share and download off of LimeWire and other, illegal platforms back then. And also, if for those of us who had a MySpace page, I don't know if you remember when we were all able to just like customize our MySpace pages, and that was coding. We were all using HTML to do that. So that's really my start into the tech space as a child, just exploring these new technologies. The early 2000s was such a prime time because innovation was so rapid. But when I think back on my journey in tech, back then, it wasn't that much of us Black people. And I just didn't feel like I had the skill set or really the support. So I decided to choose the easy route. And for college, I decided to just study hotel management because as I mentioned, I grew up in the Caribbean. The Caribbean is one of the prime tourist destinations in the world. So I was surrounded by that. And it was just an easy way to build my career in the beginning. Um, and it was also easy. It was an easy route. But really, I wasn't fulfilled. I really, really wasn't fulfilled. It just wasn't, it was a good space and a great foundation to build my career, but it wasn't an area where I saw myself long term. And I had a point and moment of realization where I was like, you know what? I'm tired of being comfortable. I'm tired of just the status quo. And I'm gonna go for it. I am going to really take this jump and jump into tech full force. Um, that was a big endeavor because it required a lot of sacrifice. And at this point in my career, I was about 5 years out of graduating with my undergraduate degree. I had a really good and solid career, was making good money, um, and I had to really uproot my life if I really wanted to make this career pivot possible. So, jump into the next slide here. This is a puzzle piece of the steps that I took to do that. So I quit my job, this was back at the height of the pandemic. So I don't recommend just quitting your job without a goal in mind, but I wanted to go back and pursue higher education. And I decided to go back to the University of Michigan. Here in the United States. It's in Michigan, which is one of the states in the United States. And the University of Michigan is a top university. It was definitely a reach for me because I didn't go to a top university in my undergrad for my undergraduate career. And I also didn't come from a rich family. And we know, like, living in the United States, living in, wherever you live in the world, there's always disparities between the rich, the middle class, and the poor. And I would say I fell right in the middle of being middle class and poor. So this was a big endeavor for me to go ahead and do. And I just said, whatever, I'll do it. And I applied to the University of Michigan. And I got in to a master's in information science program because my dream was always to become and earn a STEM degree. That was always my dream as a child, as I mentioned. And I knew the only way to really progress in tech is to be able to develop those hard skills. And I also applied to the Master's in Business Administration program, so an MBA. The University of Michigan is one of the top MBAs in the United States. It's often ranked in the top 10 programs. And when I applied the first time, I didn't get in to that program, but I applied a second time and got in. And I mention this because the combination of business and tech is powerful. Having the skills within technology, the hard skills, coding, understanding AI, understanding data structures, but marrying that with business is powerful because business is really the money. So, and I would say that this point in time, while I was in grad school, was a transformation and a renaissance and rebirth of my life. Like, I really felt that I was living my life's destiny in this field. And while I was in grad school, I started and co-founded a startup. And this startup, the name is Selly. It's called Selly. It was an AI e-commerce startup. So me and my founding team, we started this startup back in 2021 before the major AI boom. And this startup really was the pathway for me to being able to understanding tech in a practical way because we were building this new startup just from the ground up. So yeah, and with that, we had to raise funds. We had to convince investors on our product market fit, which product market fit is really essentially that you understand how your product affects the lives of users around you. And this really helped me to develop a customer-centric mindset because we can have dreams all day of what we want to build, the impact that we want to make through business and tech. But if people aren't willing to buy, then it may not work. So we have to do that upfront market research and customer discovery before we launch new products. So leading into this with those great achievements during my time in grad school, I also was able to publish a publication on AI. And this publication really talked about how we can use AI to increase coding and programming proficiency for Blacks, Latinx, and the Afro-Caribbean communities. These are three communities that are often at a disadvantage in the tech space. And I took on this research as a way to serve communities of color, to add to the conversation of AI, and to really show that AI can be a tool to really help carve out ways and pathways for us to really succeed in tech. So the link to that research is here at the bottom. I want to keep the presentation going, so I'm not going to dive too deep into that. But one of the things that I want to note as well is just like being involved in a community, right? And at BYP, this is a great community that you all are involved with. And for me, I'm involved with some other communities as well, like the Black Product Managers community, the Black Executive Men community, Product School, and a few other communities. But I would say to make the best use of your time within these communities, you should be intentional, hands down. Networking is a necessity, but within your networking, you should be intentional. And that means just like being valuable in your network. If you're going to ask for help, be willing to give help back. That's just how the world works. Also, I would say, networking kind of goes beyond the person-to-person interaction, but we live in a world where we have access to the internet. We have access to platforms like YouTube and newsletters, and these are ways where you can network by building your education lens from professionals within the industry who release YouTube videos, newsletters, etc. And that's one of the ways that I keep educated on tech and all things AI. So we know that Cape Town is a thriving and emerging tech space. I mean, Cape Town ranks as the first in South Africa within startups. Cape Town also has one of the oldest tech incubators and just a lot of growth within the tech space. And I would say that that's really for my folks who live in Cape Town, you live in Lagos, Nigeria, and other African cities. Really, this is your leverage, being in a strategic location that is a tech hub. That's really the power that you can fuel from being in a tech hub. So the African continent as a whole has a very robust tech landscape. I would say one of the biggest and most robust in the world, if I'm being honest. Africa has about 1,000 tech hubs that, where startups can access training, networking, and investment opportunities. And we know that the pandemic did have some effect on this, but we're now seeing, through the research that I saw, that a lot of startups were able to pivot as they became more digital during the pandemic era. So we want to talk about the hot topic AI. So AI, in my opinion, is a force multiplier. Artificial intelligence was really created to enhance the ability of humanity. When we look at tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all these tools, we really got to use them for their worth, to enhance our skills, to also enhance just your productivity at work and within your business. And some of the use cases that I listed here in agriculture and fintech are some practical use cases that AI is being used today within on the African continent. Also, healthcare has been a big area where AI has taken fold within the African continent. We see AI as a way to cure diseases and early disease detection, help with public health and pharmaceutical verification. Really, really, really awesome way and applicability of AI within the African healthcare ecosystem. So, talking about all the great benefits of I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the ethics of AI. It's a great tool, but it's also imperfect. If you go on ChatGPT, at the bottom of ChatGPT in fine print, it says, you know, in lack of better terms, be aware of ChatGPT because ChatGPT can be wrong. So I would say don't take things from AI at face value. I wanted to provide us with just a basic definition here on just like ethics around AI. And this is the source that I got it from because it's important. With new technologies comes new challenges. So let's just be mindful of how we use new technologies like AI. This is just a 4-part framework on just a 4-part ethical AI framework that covers fairness, accountability, transparency, and ethics. This comes directly from Microsoft, who is a leader in AI. And this framework just really helps on understanding how you can best apply AI without doing harm to yourself and other humans involved. Okay, so the fun stuff. The startup ecosystem. So the global startup ecosystem, as we know, is growing and is thriving. But I would say here, there's a lot of ways that you can get investment in your future startup or your future idea. For my startup, we leverage grants and development funds to grow our business. But the lesson here is that even with all of these fund sources, you really have to understand how they work and how they would work for your benefit, your business. For my team, we wanted to prove to investors that we had a strong product market fit and a strong user base before we tap into venture capital firms and venture capital funding. And most investors want to see that proof of concept before they start giving out their money because investors give out money to get return from their investment. And I would say if you have a business that you are hoping to keep for generations in your family, I would say the best funding source is through grants and developmental funds and also through cash flow that you develop within that business. If you're hoping to grow a big startup to do world change efforts, I would say venture capital, angel funding, and crowdfunding platforms would be your best resource because that would allow you to build a big platform, a big business, and to exit through acquisition or through public going IPO through the public stock exchange. So be aware of that. Venture capital, angel, and crowdfunding platforms know that you are giving up a share of your business to get money in return. So your ownership goes lower and you also are accountable to a board of investors. So, just be aware of the nuances that come with starting a business and funding sources. Also, Google has a great platform for Black founders in Africa. This is a great platform that's equity free, where Google would give you money to start your business. They would give you an AI learning academy where you can learn skills and tools to build your business. And it's equity free, so they don't ask for anything in return. It's just a great resource. It is an application process, very competitive, as you would know, but just a great way to get skills and also to get funding for a business that you want to start. And as I was talking about earlier, product market fit is the best way to prove if your business is successful. If people are willing to buy, if you have a way to convert people who say that they're willing to buy to customers, you've won the game. And that's where product market fit comes into play. But in order to achieve product market fit, I would say one of your best resources is to conduct customer discovery interviews, surveys on a constant basis. When you launch a business, the business is launched as a MVP, a minimal viable product, a product that's okay. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to be in the market where you can have, individuals purchasing your product and you can tweak and add features later on. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen with individuals is when they want to build a ready-made product and launch it into the market. That often doesn't work well because you're often building a product that you think that people want to buy, not necessarily what your customers are telling you that they're willing to buy. So keep that in mind. Customer discovery interviews and surveys is your best bet to ensuring that you have product market fit. Also, just some best practices for businesses and startups. I use this firsthand in my business, in my startup when I first co-founded my first startup. But we need to be aware that you need a complementary team. Your team needs to have complementary skill sets. Marketing, sales, tech, software engineering, product management, cybersecurity, finance, complementary skill sets that can drive your business forward. Second, having a strong business plan. Like I said, you will have a minimal viable product, but you need to at least have just some understanding of your market, understanding of the opportunity, just being able to speak to a growth strategy if asked. Second, legal structure. So here in the United States, we have an LLC if you want to start a business, or an S Corp. I know across the African continent, this is called the private limited company in countries like South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria. But this is good because when you have a legal structure, this allows you to activate the tax code within your country. I'm not a tax professional, but from my experience, being able to activate the tax code means if you're spending for resources on your business, you are able to write those off in your taxes. I have my own CPA. I don't handle that work, but I'm saying do the paperwork, do the necessary processes to start a legal structure for your business. Also, as a business owner, startup founder, you have to continue learning and adapting to change. The AI space back in 2021 is so different from where it is now in 2024. And I'm constantly, like I said, what I talked about earlier, YouTube, education, newsletters, industry events like what we have today will continue to help you to grow those resources. So let's keep moving here. So this was my founding team. Like I said, we were a complementary founding team of engineers, designers, product managers, finance professionals. And that's how we were able to launch Selly, which was an AI e-commerce company. Okay, so keeping right along here. So just some qualities of a business owner and a startup founder. If you want to launch a business, you need to have confidence, first and foremost. I mean, you have to have a belief in your vision that what you are trying to sell, people will buy. Competence, that goes without saying. Work ethic. I mean, running a business is difficult. Like if you're not willing to put in the hours, I would say it's not for you. Simple. Vision. You have to continue to have vision and clear understanding of the market and future growth because you're not an employee of your business. You are a founder, you are a CEO, you're someone at the senior leadership level. So you need to have vision to be able to understand the market that your business is operating in. And finally, integrity. I mean, we want to do business well. We want to operate in an integral space. And we never want to shortchange anyone or anything. I'm going to say that again. Never shortchange. Do the right thing all the time, and it will reap benefits to you. All right, all right, all right. I wanted to make sure that we had time for questions. So this is my last slide, but I am going to leave you with this, family, that you are the engine of success. I talked about technology. I talked about environment, the tech landscape in Africa. I talked about my career path, talked about all these things, my background, all these things, but it can never be fueled without you, right? It can never be fueled without you. And we know the tech disparities that exist for Black professionals globally. But I think we don't need to allow that to be a hindrance for us. And I know it's difficult in different parts of the country. I've been discriminated against in many, many different settings, but I've always held to the fact of what I bring to the table. And that's why I challenge you to do the same. Know your value, know your worth. And if they're willing to hire you, if you're willing to start that business, go for it. Because the worst thing that could happen is regret. And I lived about 5 to 6 years of my life in regret because I was afraid. But when I started to put that fear to the backside, that's when I really started to see my life change. So that's what I'll leave you with. And on that note, this is the Q&A time. Feel free to follow me on my business page, Solo Star LLC. The Instagram handle is right here. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect one-on-one with anyone if you need it. But yeah, this was a great time. I had to run through the slides so that we had time for questions. So happy to reiterate anything or go a little deeper.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, KJ. That was very insightful. Just before I speak, because I can talk and I'm so excited. I'd
Yeah.
love to give the room enough time to just gather your question. I'm sure we've got questions. You said a lot that's very interesting about how pivoting in business. And I think as a founder, sometimes you lose and you forget, the facts of running things. So I really appreciate that you keep reiterating some really standard facts that whether you started the business yesterday or 5 years later, there's some things that remain the same that are foundational. You mentioned about integrity, and I really appreciate that part. In a competitive space, one can easily lose their integrity. So I really appreciate that. And without having to ask my questions, which I have, I'd love to give the room time to ask questions. Give you some time, maybe some meditation time to think about it, but really insightful presentation. Thank you, Karon.
Yeah. Happy to do this.
Thank you. Questions, guys. If they're not, I do have a question,
Yes.
and it is pertaining what you just mentioned now, a complementary team.
Mhm.
And I think in my work, I see. Thank you, Harris. Taking your actual hand now before my question goes. Harris, you're on the mic.
Oh,
You can ask a
it's
question.
not necessarily a question, but I just want to say thank you. This is like really, it's been really insightful presentation. I have actually got to shoot off now, but I'm gonna add you on LinkedIn and get talking with you because I'm an ambassador at a university in the UK, University of Portsmouth, which is in the South Coast. And I'd love to just talk to you a bit more about technology and your views on so many other things. But I have got to shoot off right now. But I just wanted to say thank you before I left.
Yeah. Happy to connect. Happy to
Thank
connect.
you.
Looking forward
And
to
to
it.
both of you, thank you for organizing this as well. It's really interesting. Thank you both.
Thank you, Harris. We appreciate that. And if there are other questions or comments on the
Yes, please.
presentation, yes, of course.
Yes. So, hi, my name's Chris Larby. I'm country manager for Africa for Cisco Meraki. I'm not too sure if you know of the networking cloud solutions, and
Yeah.
wanted to kind of see what would your advice be in order to better educate partners to position technology to customers, showing the value add of your solution. Now, of course, I mean, I'm really good at communicating it for myself to my customers, but I feel like I'm struggling with my partners in the sense of where I need to motivate them more and educate them better. But covering 53 countries, you can imagine I only have so much time to do so.
Mhm.
Might be a completely different topic, but I see my business as a startup because I'm educating partners to sell to customers, right? What would be your advice in that sense?
Yep, yep. And I just want to make sure when you say partners, you're talking about like people who are,
Resellers.
you said resellers?
Yeah, correct. Our partners, yeah. So we never sell directly to end customers. We always sell through resellers or partners.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so my business was kind of set up the same way where we worked with third party companies to get inventory for our platform. So one of the ways that we had to do it was a lot of testimonial work where we had to get a lot of partnerships with partners who weren't the most, I'm gonna just say it, not the most sexy in the way, like not the most
Hmm.
famous.
Yeah.
But that allowed us to gain traction in the early days. And we were able to establish just connections after proving that we were able to sell their products, give them commissions in return, and that allowed them to be comfortable with giving testimonials. So if you could find a way, when you're speaking with partners or, the relationships that you're building with them to obviously show your value, but have just a lockstep process of how you want to work together through that value creation, whether it be like, okay, this commission base or whatever is split this way. Let's work on a 3-year plan, 3-month, 3-year plan on how this could benefit you. And at the end of this time, we'll reassess. And if this does benefit you, we would love to, if you're able to get the fund, the commission, whatever that exchange is, we would
Hmm.
love to have just some sort of testimonial. And my team, we set up contracts as well with our partners. I know different business models require different things, and I mean, that may not always be possible, but that's how we were able to do it. And it was also risky because the contract also did dictate, like, if we weren't able to perform, that they could pull the relationship. Um, we did have some relationships like that, but we did have some that did perform well, and they were in turn able to speak on our behalf. Also, like when you're pitching, those testimonials could be on your website. They could be a part of
Hmm.
the social media marketing kit. If you're pitching to new partners or investors, what have you, that's a part of the kit as well, as a resource. So I hope that was helpful.
That was
Um,
very helpful. Thank
yeah.
you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. I'm sure that helped someone else asking as you asked the question. Thank you for that. Ilandria, you can go ahead. Thanks.
Yes. So my question is, I'm not like, so I consider myself a ground worker, right? So I do a lot of things like on the ground. Like I'm not familiar with technology at all, but I'm trying to
Mhm.
implement it into what I'm doing. So
Mhm.
like what advice do you have for someone who is like not very familiar with technology, but I'm really trying to learn. Like I'm really adamant on like, so I'm an artist, I'm an artivist. I also am a youth advocate for my
Yeah.
community, and I also do program coordinating. And
Mhm.
I'm also a vice president for a nonprofit, E for Everyone, which basically teaches
Mhm.
entrepreneurship for everyone within my community. And so I'm just trying to like implement more tech and like it's just like I really struggle with understanding it. So like what tips do you have for someone like me who's not really familiar with tech, but I am interested in learning?
Yep, yep. And first of all, thank you for your work. Thank you for the great work that you're doing. I would say these days, it's a lot easier than it was from days of past to really understand. And I know this is going to probably sound like a basic answer, but I'll share it anyway because I think it's helpful. And it'll be a three-step answer that I'll give. But we are in the time of AI, ChatGPT, all these products that are
Oh, I'm
here.
so, and I hate it so much. Like,
If you're
oh,
able to give ChatGPT a good prompt on what you're doing and how you can implement it where you're working, and you can also ask for a prompt on how you can build your knowledge as well, um,
no.
at a basic level, and that could be your first step. That could be the literal first step of what you're trying to do. Second thing is, I would say, you know, also going back to what I said earlier, YouTube. I know, for people who may be doing the work that you're doing on YouTube, that could be a good way to just see a practical example. That's how I was able to kind of implement a lot of the technical developments in the work that I did. But third, if there's an area that you are genuinely interested in within tech, if at all, I would say start there first before everything that I just said. If you're interested in a particular area, start there first, because more than likely you will be able to go deeper into that particular area and you'll be able to see synergies after some point in time. For me, I was always interested in cloud technologies for like forever. And I've been able to go and dive deeper within that space. And now, at my current employer, I'm able to really develop and hone in on our cloud development strategy and make it better. So I think it really starts with interest. Find out what you're interested in and go deep there. That's my advice.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We'll take one more question. Guys, I'm not sure if Zoom is going to allow us a few more minutes on this room.
Right. So I just want to say thank you to Karon again for that presentation. Yesterday I was in London for was like a seminar put together by Microsoft. So they were educating us about Copilot and everything because
Mhm.
I'm just used to the ChatGPT part of the AI. I mean, I'm just even reckoning it with it. I'm like, what is this? What is AI? Machine learning, Gen AI, everything. So I started reading about it. So when I attended the event yesterday, it was really a long training session, and it was about Copilot. There was so many mind-blowing things that Copilot and everything could do. And because I'm personally just transitioning into tech, I used to work in the banking sector. And then I just picked interest in tech, and this actively since September I've been just going attending events, just wanting to know more, taking courses and everything. So now that we're talking about AI today again, I'm like, okay, I don't know if you could share with us any um guide or useful tips how to start a career being, is there anything like artificial intelligence expert or something? I don't know. So what
Okay.
are the career prospects? Where should we start from? Can you be a new person in the tech terrain and you can work on AI? And what are the roles you should be looking out for?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Thanks so much for your question. So I would say your question was layered, so I'll try to answer it in the best way possible. First, I would say anybody could jump into this space, because it's so accessible these days. I mean, I understand, different parts of the country, you may have different internet connectivity challenges. So I want to acknowledge that first and foremost. But being able to just do a quick Google search or ChatGPT search is really the accessibility that we have today that we didn't have 10 years ago. Second thing is the top roles now these days, the top sectors of tech is obviously AI, cybersecurity, and cloud. Top three billion-dollar industries. With cloud jumping to about $1 trillion in maybe a decade or so from now. So I would say, again, find where your interests lie. There are tech adjacent roles, like certain product management roles are tech adjacent where you're working with a tech product, but you're not like deeply technical. Or you can go to like a software engineer, which is obviously the highest degree of technicality within the tech space. So it just really depends on how technical you want to be, how technical you want to go. But at a fundamental area, I would say learning to code in a basic programming language could be helpful. And for me, I learned Python. That was my first programming language. That's where I got my start. Python is a good way to understand data structures, how, you can manipulate different things using a very, very cool language. And these days, I'm gonna go back to ChatGPT again. I mean, you can learn Python on ChatGPT or YouTube. So that could be a fundamental way to get started. But it's really understanding what roles you want to go after would be my biggest advice. Because saying the tech industry is very broad. So honing in and niching down to something.
One thing about growing, it's gonna be scary. And it just speaks to where I am now as the person. So yeah, we might just all be scared, guys, but let's all jump in and everything is gonna work out. So in that, I would love to say thank you. Have a beautiful life.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.